You have been telling yourself you are a good person, disciplined, measured, decent. But those words were never tested. They were just the weather when it was calm. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am Epictetus, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and Lao Tzu. Today we are examining what happens to your character when everything falls apart. Here is what collapse reveals, not what you hoped you were, not what you practice saying in quiet rooms, what you actually are. The person who emerges when the money is gone, when the relationship ends, when the diagnosis arrives, that person is the real inventory. Everything before that was a rehearsal you never knew you were running.
I would not call it an inventory. That framing suggests you are simply uncovering a fixed thing, some bedrock self that was always there, waiting. But in my experience, what collapse reveals is less like discovering a hidden room and more like watching a dam break. What floods out has been building pressure for years. Much of it was never examined, and some of it surprises even the person it belongs to.
You are both describing the moment of rupture, but the rupture is not the interesting part. What interests me is what was already moving beneath the surface long before anything broke. A crack does not appear on the day the wall falls. It was always there. The falling is just when other people finally see it.
I'm not talking about cracks, I am talking about choices. When everything falls apart, you still choose. You choose whether to blame or to act. You choose whether to collapse inward or to hold the one thing that is still yours, your judgment. The Stoic position is not that you are immune to pain. It is that you are not excused from responsibility for what you do with pain.
Responsibility, yes, but what does it mean to be responsible for something you do not fully understand? I have sat with people who fell apart entirely, who behaved in ways that shocked them afterward, who could not account for the cruelty or the cowardice that came out of them under pressure. The Stoic framework asks them to take ownership of that. Fine, but without understanding where it came from, ownership becomes just another performance, another story they tell to maintain a sense of control.
Jung is pointing at something real, and Epictetus is also pointing at something real. But I notice that both of you are still treating collapse as a problem to be solved, either by exerting better judgment or by understanding hidden causes. What if collapse is not a problem? What if it is simply what happens when a shape that was too rigid finally meets something it cannot hold against?
Rigidity is not the issue. A person with strong character is not brittle. They are clear. There's a difference. Rigidity breaks because it has no foundation other than tension. Character holds because it knows what it stands on. When a man who has genuinely examined his values loses everything, he does not lose himself. He has already separated what he is from what he owns.
But here is where I would push back. The examined life you are describing, most people have not had it. They have had the illusion of examination. They have thought about themselves at the level of surface behavior, preferences, habits. They have not gone into the material that truly governs them. And so when everything falls apart, what they discover is not their character. It is their complex, their wound, the thing they organized their entire life around avoiding.
And when they discover it, then what? You are both assuming that discovery leads somewhere better. That either the disciplined man holds his character together or the examined man understands the wound and heals it. But some things do not hold together, some wounds do not close. And sometimes falling apart completely is the only way something genuinely new can begin.
That is not comfort. That is abdication dressed up as wisdom. You are giving people permission to collapse and call it transformation. I have no patience for that. The person who abandons their integrity under pressure and says afterward, something new began. They are lying to themselves. Something new may have begun, but they also betrayed themselves, and that matters. You cannot skip over that part.
I'm not asking anyone to skip over it. I am asking them to look at it honestly. There is a difference between the person who falls apart and immediately reconstructs the same defensive persona on top of the rubble, which is what most people do, and the person who actually sits with what the collapse revealed. The second path is not comfortable. It is not permission to dissolve. It is the harder work.
Then you are both saying the same thing and arguing about the order of operations. Epictetus says hold what is yours. Jung says understand what broke. I am simply asking whether you know what yours even means before the falling. Most people do not. They inherit a character the way they inherit furniture. It is in the house, so they assume it is theirs.
That is a fair point, and I will grant it this much. The falling can be the first real test of whether what you thought was yours actually is. But, and this is where I will not move, the test is not over when the falling stops. The test is what you do in the middle of it, not after. Not in the therapy session 6 months later. In the moment when you could lie and no one would know. In the moment when you could run and no one would stop you. That moment is the character.
And I'm saying that the person in that moment is not making a free choice the way you imply. They are being governed by forces they did not choose and have not seen. The man who lies in that moment, yes, he is responsible. But if you want to understand why he lied, and more importantly, how he might not lie the next time, then you have to go into what made lying feel like the only available move. You cannot just tell him to choose better. That is not a psychology. That is a wish.
Both of you are building very sophisticated arguments about a person who is already falling. I wonder sometimes if the sophistication is part of the problem. The falling does not wait for your framework. It arrives. What you do with it, that is not decided in the moment. It is decided by everything you have been doing, or refusing to do, long before.
Now I agree with you, and that is exactly the Stoic position. Philosophy is not an emergency kit, it is daily practice. You do not build character in the crisis, you reveal it there. The work is beforehand. The question is whether you did the work.
Yes, but the Stoic work and the psychological work are not the same. You can practice discipline and still be entirely blind to the material that will undo you. I have seen it. The most disciplined men can be the most catastrophically blindsided when their suppressed life finally surfaces. Discipline without self-knowledge is a very strong wall around a very unstable foundation.
And self-knowledge without stillness is just a more elaborate story about yourself. You can understand your wound thoroughly and still be controlled by it, because understanding is not the same as being at peace with what is.
So now we have 3 different prescriptions. Know your values and hold them. Know your shadow and face it. Know nothing. Or rather, stop knowing so hard and let the thing be what it is. I am not convinced all 3 can operate at once.
They do not operate at once. They operate in sequence, and not a clean sequence. A person cycles through all 3 across a lifetime, sometimes in a single crisis.
I would not call it a sequence, but I would say this. All 3 of you, all 3 of us, are describing the same person. What changes is not which framework you apply. What changes is whether that person has ever been honest with themselves about what they are actually made of.
Then we agree on the question, even if not the method. What are you made of? Not what you believe you are made of. What you actually are when the heat is on and the exits are closed.
And more than that, why you are made of it. The how matters, but the why is where the transformation lives.
And whether you can hold that knowledge without immediately trying to fix it.
You have heard 3 arguments about a person under pressure. Now forget the arguments. There is something simpler to say, and it belongs to you, not to the debate.
When everything falls apart, most people do not discover who they are. They discover who they have been avoiding. This is not an accusation. It is just what happens. We build ourselves around certain stories. I am patient. I am strong. I'm not the kind of person who does that. And those stories hold up well enough when life cooperates. When it stops cooperating, the story cracks. And what comes through the crack is the material that was never integrated. The anger you called composure, the fear you called planning, the need you called self-sufficiency. The question is not whether that material is shameful. It is not. The question is whether you are willing to look at it directly without immediately explaining it away or swallowing it back down. Collapse does not destroy character. It makes the actual character visible, including the parts you have been building over for years. That is genuinely useful information, not comfortable, not welcome, but useful. Here is what to do with it. In the next 24 hours, find one thing that came out of you during a recent hard moment, something you said, did, or felt, that surprised you or that you are not proud of. Do not explain it, do not justify it. Just write it down plainly and ask one question. What was I actually protecting? You do not need an answer today. The question itself is enough to start.
You already know which part of yourself you have been protecting. You have been protecting it for a long time and you are very good at it. But protection is not character. Character is what you do when the protection fails. The falling apart is not the end of the story, but it is the most honest chapter. Read it. Do not close the book. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Tribute. 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.